Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? Who's going to win the US presidential election? And why should you care if you're living in the UK? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you why you do care who wins the presidential race, because it's going to make a massive difference to us as people in property and business here in the United Kingdom. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon, because we put out new videos each and every week, all dedicated to keeping you on top of your property investing game. So why am I making videos on the US presidential election on a UK property channel? Have I run out of things to say on property? No, I haven't. This US election is so critical to us in the UK. There's never been one like it, where what is going to happen over there is going to have such a dramatic effect on us in the UK as people in property or business. And that's because of the candidates. Now, from time to time, you get all these lefties that stand up for election, and they don't do that well. In the UK, of course, we've had Michael Foot in the 1980s and Jeremy Corbyn more recently. Both of them failed to win over the electorate on their lefty agenda. In the US of A, they've had good old Bernie Sanders. Now, he's stood for the Democratic nomination a few times and has never really succeeded. But more lefty than Bernie Sanders, Michael Foot and Jeremy Corbyn is the current Democratic hopeful, Kamala Harris. Now, Kamala Harris stood for the Democratic Party nomination as presidential candidate a few years ago and failed. She was given the VP role, which she took, but she has not won an election ever to be the presidential candidate. And I'm going to take you through some of her lefty policies, and you will see that they're even more lefty than what our very own Keir Starmer and Rachel Thieves have in store for us. Now, why does that matter? It matters because when the US takes a certain direction of travel, it makes it a lot easier for the UK to follow behind. Now, if we have a government in the US which is even more lefty than Keir Starmer and Rachel Thieves, then it gives a license for our lot to be even more lefty than they plan to be. For example, just look at the lockdowns a few years ago, where governments printed tons and tons of money. Now, in the UK, we printed billions of pounds. Now, if we had just printed that money on our own and no other country had done it, basically the UK would be Venezuela in terms of hyperinflation. The reason we survived that money printing madness was because the US printed a whole lot more. So we could kind of fall under their wing, and relative to the US, we hadn't printed as much. Now, it's a similar thing with government policy. When the UK and US policy runs in more or less unison, we tend to find that in the UK we can grow a lot more. But if the US wants to do something extreme, then it will certainly give our lot a license to do even more extreme things. So what is it that they're planning to do? Well, when Donald Trump was in power last time, he put something in place called the TCJA, which stands for the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Now, this was a law that set certain taxation rates for a 5-year period. And this 5-year period expires at some point in 2025. So when this Biden lot came in, they couldn't really change those because they didn't have their seats and all of this in Congress, or however it works there. I don't exactly know. But the long and short of it is the current tax regime expires, the current rules set in place by Trump expire in 2025. And this is when Kamala wants to change the whole goddamn lot. So what does she want to do? Well, first of all, corporation tax over in the US is 21%. She wants to increase it to 28%. That's, of course, higher than we have it in the UK currently, which is 25%. Capital gains, she's talking about increasing that to 44.6% over in the US. And there's some mad things, mad lefty things that Kamala has dreamt up, which a lot of analysts are saying, openly saying, are quite frankly dumb.
You can rely on Kamala Harris to show that she is consistently and hopelessly incompetent.
One of these crazy policies Kamala has up her sleeves is a tax on unrealized gains, a 25% tax on unrealized gains. Now, let me just take you through the concept of this mad tax. Let's say you have a property and it's $1 million. You bought the property, it's $1 million. It goes up to $5 million. Then you've had, but you're not selling it, you're keeping it. You've got an unrealized gain of $4 million. So she wants to grab 25% of that unrealized gain. Well, where are you going to get it from? You have not had a trigger event like a sale of the property, a disposal of the property, from which to pay that 25% tax. It is pure madness.
That's really bullshit.
And then what would happen if, okay, my $1 million property has increased to $5 million, I've paid 25% unrealized gains tax. What happens if there's a crash and next year that property falls in value to $3 million? Do I get a refund on the unrealized gains tax that I've paid? Okay, it is true to say that Kamala is proposing this unrealized gains tax on people who have assets of more than $100 million. But it's the concept that is so lefty and so mad that just introducing the whole idea into the tax system is scary. And I'm telling you, that will lead to a massive exodus of high net worth individuals from the US, simply for that rule alone. Now, if you think that's lefty lunacy, you ain't heard nothing yet. Now, there in the US, just as in the UK, there's been a lot of grocery price inflation. And Kamala, despite being in office for 3.5 years in the Biden administration, proclaiming that Biden economics has been great for the nation, is not blaming herself for her part in the money printing that they've done, which has done a lot to create this grocery price inflation. She is blaming the supermarkets in the US themselves, and she wants to bring about price controls on them. Now, a quote from the late ex-president Ronald Reagan in the US famously said on inflation, "We don't have inflation because the people are living too well. We have inflation because the government is living too well." And that's exactly what they've been doing, and we've been doing over here, printing a tons of money and then spending it on God knows what. But Kamala's solution to grocery price inflation is to blame those retailers. Now, US food retailers make even lower margins than our guys do over here. Retail margins for supermarkets is roughly around 1.5% to 2% there. So they aren't profiteering excessively from the food they're putting on the shelves. But oh no, lefty Kamala is blaming the food retailers for grocery price inflation in the US and wants to control the prices of those groceries. Now, every failed economy that has tried any kind of price controls on essential products have found that it's failed. Because if you create an environment where it is unprofitable for the private sector to bring their goods to market, then why should they bother? And if you want a proof of that, well, you can just look here in the UK. Just in the last week, we can see that Barratt, the housing builder in the UK, has pulled 4 planning applications. Basically, they're taking their ball and going home. Why? Because the government's 50% affordable housing contribution just makes the whole scheme unviable. And this is a classic example of how, the lefties may want this and that, but if they make it uneconomic for us in the private sector to bring that product or service to market, then we're not going to bother. What's the point in taking the risk to do that? Now, hopefully, our very own Keir Starmer and Rachel Thieves will learn these lessons. But what I fear most is a Kamala Harris victory in the US. Because what we will see is a massive lefty force among the G7 nations. Just north of the US of A, of course, you've got Canada, which is under the Justin Trudeau regime. Now, he has basically squandered the economy there, and is deeply unpopular for taxing everything that moves. And guess what? Justin Trudeau is best buddies with Keir Starmer.
Very good to see you again and have this fantastic opportunity to meet with you and other progressive leaders.
Justin Trudeau was one of the first people that Keir Starmer had a conversation with when he got elected as PM. and they were waffling on about how aligned they were on policy. That's the most scariest thing I've ever heard. So now more than ever, if you're in property, you're in business, you want a low tax, growth, entrepreneur-friendly environment here in the UK, then what we need in the US is a Trump victory.
Whether you love me or hate me, you gotta vote for me.
Because a Trump victory will mean that the UK can't go too much in a lefty direction, because otherwise, of course, the UK will be an outringer. And in the international markets and in the international marketplace where people are looking for multiple countries to invest in, they're not going to go for lefty Britain against Trump investor-friendly America. So that kind of clips the wings a little bit on some of the extreme policies that Labour may want to do. But if Kamala's in, then we ain't seeing nothing yet of how lefty this lot are going to go. So tell me what you think in the comments below. Are you rooting for Trump as the US president? Just comment Trump in the comments below if you are. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell icon for more videos like this, and like this video if you're liking the content on this channel. See you guys next time.
So the United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea.
It's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present, and to be able to contextualize it, to understand where we exist in the history and in the moment as it relates not only to the past but the future.